Have you ever noticed that two people can go through the exact same stressful situation and have completely different reactions? One person seems to deal with it and move on, the other can't switch off. They're still thinking about it hours later, they replay conversations in their head, their heart rate feels elevated, they wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about something that happened yesterday. If that sounds familiar, today's video is for you. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is assuming that their stress resilience is purely psychological. That if you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, wired, or unable to switch off, you simply need to meditate more, think differently, or become mentally tougher. Sometimes that's part of the picture, but sometimes there's a physiological reason why your nervous system responds differently. One of the genes that may play a role is called COMT, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into the genetics, let's talk more about the problem. A lot of the people I work with are high performers. They're business owners, professionals, athletes, people who are highly driven and motivated. The interesting thing is that many of them don't struggle because they're lazy. They struggle because they can't switch off. They're constantly thinking, constantly planning, constantly solving problems. They often describe feeling like their brain is running at full speed all day long. Then they get into bed and their brain keeps going. They know they're tired, their body is tired, but their mind hasn't received the memo. That's where understanding a pathway like COMT becomes interesting. So what is COMT? COMT stands for catechol O methyltransferase. That's a complicated name for a relatively simple job. COMT helps break down and clear certain neurotransmitters and stress chemicals after they've done their work. Think of it as part of the body's cleanup crew. When stress hormones and neurotransmitters are released, they need to be cleared and recycled. COMT helps with that process. The three most important chemicals involved here are dopamine, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. Let's start with dopamine. Dopamine is often referred to as the motivation neurotransmitter. It's involved in focus, drive, reward, and goal-seeking behavior. It's one of the reasons people are highly ambitious and motivated. The downside is that if dopamine remains elevated for longer periods, it can sometimes contribute to that feeling of always being switched on, always thinking, always analyzing, always planning the next thing. Now let's look at adrenaline. Adrenaline is part of your fight or flight response. Its job is to prepare you for action. Increase alertness, increase heart rate, increase readiness. That's fantastic when you're facing a genuine challenge. It's less useful when you're lying in bed trying to fall asleep. Noradrenaline works in a similar way. It's heavily involved in attention, vigilance, and alertness. Again, there are useful systems. The goal isn't to eliminate them, the goal is to regulate them appropriately. And this is where individual variation becomes important. Some people appear to clear these stress chemicals relatively efficiently. Others may clear them more slowly. When I review genetic reports, this is one of the pathways I often pay attention to because it can help explain certain patterns. Not diagnose, not predict, but explain. For example, a common pattern I see is someone saying, I can't stop thinking, my brain never switches off, I feel wired but tired, I wake up in the middle of the night and my brain is instantly active. I've tried everything for stress. These are the sorts of clues that make me curious about nervous system regulation. Now, I want to be very clear. COMT is not the only reason somebody might experience those symptoms. You have poor sleep, excess caffeine, blood sugar instability, overtraining, burnout, and life stress. You also have hormonal changes, and all of these things can contribute. This is why I don't believe genetics should ever be viewed in isolation. Genetics provides context, not conclusions. What I find particularly interesting is how often this overlaps with recovery. Many people think recovery is about protein shakes and magnesium supplements. Recovery starts much earlier than that. Recovery begins when the nervous system can move from a state of stress into a state of repair. If you're constantly in a heightened state of alertness, recovery becomes harder, sleep becomes harder, adaptation becomes harder. And over time, it can influence performance, resilience, and overall well-being. This is one reason I spend a lot of time looking at the bigger picture. When someone comes into a consult and tells me they're exhausted, I'm not immediately thinking about one nutrient. I'm thinking, how are they sleeping? How are they recovering? What does their blood work look like? What is their stress load? What is their training volume? Could genetics be contributing? That's where testing becomes valuable. Not because genetic testing gives us all the answers, it doesn't, but it can provide another layer of information. It can help explain why two people following the exact same health plan can get completely different results. Once we understand the physiology, that's where naturopathic medicine becomes useful. The goal isn't to change your genes. We can't do that. The goal is to support the pathways those genes influence. And that might involve supporting sleep quality, improving recovery, managing stress load, addressing nutrient deficiencies, using targeted nutraceuticals, using herbal medicines that support nervous system regulation, improving blood sugar stability, adjusting training load, improving circadian rhythm. Intervention is always personalised to the individual sitting in front of me, because two people with the same genetic variation may still need completely different strategies. That's why I find genetics so useful, not because it predicts the future, because it helps personalise your approach. If you've ever felt like your nervous system doesn't switch off, or you've wondered why stress seems to affect you differently from other people, there may be more going on beneath the surface than you realise. I've published a full article on the COMT gene that explores this topic in much more detail. I'll put the link below, and if you're interested in understanding how your genetics, blood work, recovery, and lifestyle factors interact, you can book a complimentary 15-minute biohacking strategy call through my website. I'm Sarah from Biohacking Naturopath. Thank you for watching.